Hi, and welcome to the Pit Lane, a Formula One podcast where we talk about everything Formula One. The 2025 F1 season has officially started, and we are here to review the season opener, the Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park in Australia. I am your host, Jordan Wynn, and alongside me is my co-host, Alden Kaywell. How you doing this week, Alden?
Very good, Jordan. It's nice to be back chatting with you. And I really enjoyed the first Grand Prix of the season down there in Melbourne.
Yeah, as did I. It was a weather-filled Sunday. We had great weather leading up to that, though, so we'll get into that right away with some practice sessions. We had 5 quote-unquote rookies going into this weekend, however you decide to classify rookies. Or 6, maybe? Depends how you classify, I guess. With Liam Lawson, Kimi Antonelli, Isaac Hadjar, what's Duhan's first name? I forget. Jack Duhan, yep. Bortoletto, I'm also forgetting right at this moment for whatever reason. Gabriel Bortoletto and Oliver Behrman are rookies this weekend, so they all had their first race of the season, maybe is the right way to put this, as Liam Lawson's been in race weekends, so has Duhan. So those two have had full weekend experiences before, but everyone else has not. With the practice sessions, let's start with Oliver Behrman, who has driven a few Grand Prix. He really struggled in FP1. He crashed, 20 minutes in, halfway into the session. And he did not participate in FP2 due to the car repairs. And he also crashed 3 minutes into FP3. Or because he didn't, I don't know. He struggled in the practice sessions, and he also didn't qualify due to transmission issue. So it was definitely a tough start for him to his Formula One first F1 weekend.
Yeah, definitely a rocky start for him. He, you may recognize the name. He participated in 3 races last year, 1 for Ferrari and 2 for Haas. Is that right?
That sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. So he was, I guess, both the Haas and Ferrari reserve driver last year. Called in when Sainz was having appendicitis surgery, and when Kevin Magnussen was both banned, and when he was feeling under the weather in Brazil. So he's used to coming in with less practice, less notice, but these issues certainly didn't help his weekend. The crash seemed weird in FP1. Totally understandable that he missed FP2 due to the repairs that the team needed to conduct on his car. But it was really tough for him to crash out in FP3. I think the announcers that I was watching were literally talking about how he needed to have a good session when he went off. I don't think he damaged the car too much. What did he get beached in some gravel and he just couldn't get out?
Something like that, yeah.
So I don't think there was like physical damage to the car unless it was the floor from his issue in FP3, but not seeing him get out there for qualifying was definitely tough to see. I mean, not a good start to the weekend. But yeah.
Yeah, and as a whole, sorry, go ahead.
No. That's tough for him, but it's not the end of the woes for Haas, I suppose. A little foreboding.
Yeah, tough weekend for Haas all the way around. But the McLarens were quick in all sessions, as we kind of expected. Lando Norris topped FP1. They were second and third in FP2, and Oscar Piastri topped FP3. So they were all quick all weekend, as we kind of figured after testing in Bahrain. Charles was quick in the Ferrari in FP2, topping there, and he was in top 5 in FP3. And some other interesting notes in practice, I guess, is the Williams seemed very quick. I think Carlos was second in FP1. Albon was up there in FP3 as well as Carlos. So they seemed very quick this weekend, a little surprisingly.
Yeah. They looked fast during preseason testing in Bahrain, but we all were kind of like, speculating that maybe wasn't their true form, but they're, after this first weekend, again, maybe not a full data set to sort of take to have any takeaways, but they're kind of looking a little bit faster than they were last year and have probably moved up a couple pegs in the order at least here at the beginning of the season.
It's a very good sign for them, definitely, to start the season out. Did you have any other practice notes you wanted to touch on?
Just like, what was it, Saturday during FP3 and qualifying, it was like really, really hot there. And a lot of teams, it seemed like, knew even on Friday that Sunday was going to be quite wet. I mean, I think they were talking like it was 100% chance of rain. So a lot of teams were, kind of shooting in the dark for their setups in terms of how much downforce they wanted to put on the car before a wet race session. We'll see if this is sort of like the true order, but as far as practice goes, yeah, no, those notes that you went off, you rattled off, were good.
And might as well get into qualifying then, huh? For that Saturday. Getting to Q1. We had a few surprises, maybe, depending on how you look at it. We had a couple rookies go out right away in Q1. One was Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes at P16 in his F1 debut. Liam Lawson in the Red Bull. Remember, he's partnered up with Max. He went P18. And Esteban Ocon in the Haas was P19. And as we mentioned earlier, Oliver Behrman did not participate. So that means both Haas's started at the back of the pack. Liam Lawson actually started from the pit lane. So did Oliver Behrman. So they were automatically at the back of the field anyways, coming out of the pit lane. And I think Hulkenberg was the other one, right? That was P17.
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct.
But yeah, while we're talking about rookies a little bit, Isaac Hadjar was P11. So I think that was a great qualifying for him. So he went out in Q2. Jack Doohan was P17. Bortoletto beat his teammate in P15. And yeah, as we noted, Behrman was did not finish or did not start in qualifying. But getting into Q3, it was a fast session. Both McLarens topped the field by about 3/10, I think, over Max, with Norris taking pole and Piastri taking second. Yeah, they were quite a ways ahead of Max, which was not that big of a surprise, but I think it was more interesting that it was Max that ended up P3, I think, after kind of the practice sessions and whatnot. George Russell was P4. Yuki Tsunoda qualified P5 in the Racing Bulls. So I don't know if they have some good pace or if it was one of those setup things for the weekend, that maybe they had less downforce than some other people for the rain. On Sunday, who knows? Alex Albon in the Williams was P6, so that was great to see. The Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton were back-to-back in 7th and 8th. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine and Carlos Sainz was P10. So both the Williams got into Q3. So that was a great sign for them.
Yeah, that was huge for Williams to have both their cars into Q3. Both drivers seem to be, gelling well with the car and, extracting the same sort of speed from the car and the setup. Surprisingly, Ferraris were 7th and 8th. I don't know. Do you happen to think that was perhaps because they were adding more downforce for the potential rain? Or do you think that's maybe a little bit more indicative of their form or speed this year?
I thought I had read that, I don't know if it's 100% true or not, but I thought I had read that they actually had to raise their ride height from their practice sessions to qualifying so that they didn't get, that plank wear we had talked about in some previous podcasts that, they had to raise so they didn't have too much plank wear underneath on their floors. So I think they had to do that, which kind of compromised them a little bit. But yeah, I guess we'll see moving forward if they're really concerned or if they're not. But hopefully that's the case. Otherwise, they might be in a world of hurt at the beginning of the season here.
Right.
But yeah, that's just what I read.
Okay. No, and I also saw some information. So I saw some stuff online that the Racing Bulls showed up with some new pieces for their car this weekend between preseason testing and this first race weekend, and that also the Racing Bulls had that the Saubers did as well. So it's like two teams showed up with some bits that obviously made their cars perform a little bit better. I mean, we kind of thought Sauber might be dead last, and Bortoleto qualified P15 while Hulk was 17. It's still further back, but not the sort of P19, P20 that we thought they would be all season. So they're exceeding our expectations already. But then also for the Racing Bulls, they kind of looked the second slowest team after the preseason testing, and that they're already up in Yuki's qualifying P5. What a hero lap that was. I don't know. Do you think that teams are sort of weren't showing their full hands in the testing, or do you think this is sort of an outlier?
I think that's possible with some of these back market teams, that they kind of knew what they had going into the season, and maybe they were bluffing a little bit. I don't know how much they wanted to in those 3 days of testing, but if they knew they had stuff in the pipeline coming, and maybe they just essentially brought a car from the end of last year or something to that, to that effect, maybe with the new cockpit or whatever. But I thought it was interesting that both of them brought parts to the first race of the season, and we were only 2 weeks out from testing. And I think Sauber's was like their side pods were completely different, and the front wing was completely different. Like, those are two major pieces to do in 2 weeks, to get all that data, produce parts for both people in 2 weeks' time, and down to Australia. Like, you know what I mean? So I think they were just hiding that, and I mean, kudos to them. I mean, they fooled us. I think they fooled a lot of people right off the bat. I'm glad it's happening, though. I'm glad that they kind of came out and showed them what they had, and they kind of, I don't want to say sandbag, but maybe that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, or that they had intended to bring it to the preseason testing, but they weren't ready yet. And that when they set it up on the car during the practice sessions in like FP1 and FP2, they were able to, correlate data and show that it was fast. I mean, I don't know either, but either way, I think we're both pleased to see that whatever they've done to either the setup or the new bits made the cars faster, or more competitive, rather.
Yeah, obviously we want more competition, so yeah, I think we're both in the same boat there, that we're happy that they got the results that they ultimately probably wanted from these upgrades, and did what they had to do, one way or the other. So,
but qualifying wasn't the end, was it? The race was an entirely different story.
Yeah, let's talk about before the race Sunday. If you watch F1 on a regular basis or not, you may or may not know that usually there are support races, which are essentially races that go on before F1 has their races, which is usually the last race of the day at that circuit. So in Australia, they have supercars. I don't think they had the Porsche Cup this year there, because they had the supercars, but then I know they had F3 and F2 down there as well. I believe the supercars got canceled because of the rain. I think F3 started and then got canceled, or something like that. And then F2 tried to start and never did, because of the rain. This is all because of how much rain they got in the morning and early afternoon. It was too wet for anybody to go racing. And so following it, everyone's kind of like, well, hopefully F1 starts. The weather looked like it was going to clear up, not the track, but the weather. So yeah, all the rubber that was put down over the weekend with the 2 nice days they had, it's all gone. It's wet. There's ducks on the ponds. There's ducks on the, on the track and whatnot. So that was before the race started. I believe the rain had stopped by the time they got out onto the track to park on the grid before their formation laps. Is that right?
Yeah, I think from what I didn't see sort of like the pre-race hype stuff that usually starts like an hour and a half before. It may have still been raining or just barely raining at that point, but by the time I started watching, the rain had stopped and the track was just mostly wet. Standing water in some places, but because no cars had gone around, the entire track was pretty wet.
Yeah, and that's an understatement. So yeah, they line up on the grid. They did their they were doing their formation lap, and one of our rookies, Isaac Hadjar, who's gonna start P11, crashes on the formation lap. He was on the track, and I'm talking, he wasn't near the grass, he wasn't on a curb, he wasn't going around a corner. He was on the track. He applied throttle. I don't know if he was shifting gears or whatever happened, but mind you, this is probably his first time in an F1 car in the rain or in wet conditions. Whatever happened, the amount of torque that car gave him caught him off guard. He spun out, crashed, and he's out of his first race without even starting. It's really unfortunate for him.
Really unfortunate. You could see the emotional toll that this took on him. The commentators that I were watching were being very generous and very kind, as was, everyone around the circuit. I think it was Anthony Hamilton, Hamilton's father, met him, in the paddock area and was consoling him, giving him some words of encouragement. But it's just really unfortunate that this happened to the young driver here on the formation lap of all times and all places. I think he was going through turn 2 when it happened, but I think you'd be really harsh to say it was quote unquote his fault.
Especially with what we got coming up.
Yeah, especially considering what happens later on here. But I feel bad for him. This isn't the first time a driver has crashed on the formation lap. Lance Stroll did it last year in Brazil
and recovered.
Max has done it. Yes, that's right. In Hungary a couple years back. So
it happens. It does happen. It catches them all out.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, even in a couple seconds here, we'll get to other people who had some issues as well.
Yeah. So we're gonna go about the race a little bit differently than we usually do. We'll probably go through the whole race kind of, and then give everybody's finishes toward the end, as it was kind of a hectic race, and I feel like this is the only way we can really go about it and try and cover most of the stuff that happened. Race starts. Everybody gets on the grid. Race starts. Both Oscar and Lando Norris get off fine. Max is also right there, and they go mostly line of stern in the first corner with Piastri defending on Max, but then Max gets by Piastri kind of coming out of turn 1, going out of turn 2, kind of the first chicane there. So we got Lando leading Lando leading, Max in second, Piastri third. And coming out of turn 5, Jack Doohan, another rookie, crashes after applying power out of turn 5 in the middle of the road. Very similar situation, obviously not on the formation lap, but he's on his own. He spins out, applying power. I don't know if it's a similar situation, but definitely looked like it as Isaac Hadjar's, and he just crashes all by himself and causes a safety car on lap 1.
Yeah, we haven't even finished lap 1 before a second crash. Again, Doohan hasn't really done this himself. I mean, it's not his fault per se. But it just goes to show how treacherous the conditions were. It wasn't actively raining at this time, but the road was just greasy, wet, slippery, lots of chicanes, so a lot of like stop go, really harsh stop go conditions, even when it's dry. But yeah, just feel bad for him too. 2 rookies out before the first lap has even finished. Like you said, it was a safety car, and while the safety car was still going around the circuit, we had another issue.
Yeah, and I think it's even before the McLarens had picked up the safety car, if my memory is right, or pretty close to it, coming back down the main straight. A Williams, Carlos Sainz ends up spinning, going through the last corner and crashing as well. Seemed like a very similar situation. I know the announcers were talking about, if there was a torque surge, or Carlos mentioned that, while he was shifting and applied the throttle coming out of the corner. But yeah, he's I don't know if he's on the white paint or whatever, because this is a street circuit. Yeah, he just coming out of last corner, he spins and crashes into the wall, and that's the end of the race for Carlos as well. So this happens to not just rookies, it happens to veterans as well. Just a crazy situation before we even get through the first lap for everybody, essentially, right? We got 3 cars already out.
Yeah, this, like you mentioned, this may have been technically the second or third or fourth lap or whatever of the race when Sainz crashed, but we haven't had a full lap of racing. I feel bad for Sainz, Duan, and Hadjar. Their debuts sort of ruined by conditions that weren't of their choosing. So we feel bad for them, and we wish them all the best at the next race, because we know that they've got more to prove than crashing into the wall. But yeah, tough pill to swallow, I think, for those drivers and those teams. But it did create some interesting scenarios for us. And yeah, once things started getting going, it was good racing.
Yeah, let's get into it. We got a restart. Lando gets off just fine. He gets away from Max right away. Piastri's on Max's tail. Piastri ends up getting past Max. And both the McLarens essentially drive away from Max as he's complaining about his tires going off. By the time, I think I have written down here, they cleared Max by about 16 seconds by lap 32 or 33. And at this point, there's a dry line. They're talking about maybe switching to dry tires. I know Max wants to come in. A few other drivers want to come in for dry tires instead of being on the intermediates, but they're also talking about rain coming pretty soon. So nobody really wants to be the first one to flinch. But yeah, Piastri at his home race, he was right on the back of Lando as this track is drying up. DRS has been enabled for some time now, and he is told by his team to hold position. I don't know how or at what point that radio message was, because you know how they delay some stuff, but it kind of felt like Piastri was really coming onto Lando, and he was told to hold position, and he was saying he's faster. So I think he wasn't very happy about that decision, but I think they were just concerned about maybe the rain coming and something happening.
I think they were also overtaking some back markers at this point. They were starting to lap some drivers, and so they wanted to get clear of the back markers before anyone did anything a little bit more questionable or dangerous. Not that either of them were driving that way, but yeah, I think that played into it a little bit.
That makes a lot of sense. That does make sense now that you mention it. He was told, then he was free to race a little bit later. Again, timing seemed a little weird, but if it was because of the back markers, that makes sense. But he did just make a little minor mistake. He lost a couple of seconds to Lando at that point. But then at about that time, Fernando Alonso crashes. Again, another veteran crashes in the first race of the year. He crashed on lap 34, and essentially everybody dives in for dry tires. Most people take hards. A few people take medium tires. I think Max did. I think maybe Alex Albon did, and somebody else took mediums. But yeah, the majority of people that are left in the race took on some hard tires during that yellow flag that Alonso started.
Yeah, and this was a yellow flag that we both thought maybe should have been a red flag. Alonso crashed in a very similar place to where Russell crashed last year, which is this like the exit of turn 6 or 7. It's sort of like the really fast chicane that then leads on to the back straight. That's sort of not a straight, but a series of turns that they're able to take flat out. He's kind of not exactly in the middle of the road. He's off to one side, but there are like, flatbed trucks out on the circuit while the other drivers, the other cars are driving past. It's not a good look. We've seen what happens with this in the past in Japan a couple times. It was pretty scary, and I think some of the announcers were making points of it. The media's made points of it. And I think the drivers have sort of brushed it away. But yeah, to get back to the racing, at least this crash sort of forced everyone's hands to change tires. They were all hemming and hawing about whether they wanted to do it. But at the end everyone decided to go on dry tires, and it introduced some interesting racing because there was a dry line for most of the circuit. I think there was only a couple places where it didn't quite look dry. I can't quite remember. Do you recall?
I think it was. I think there was at least a line that was remotely dry, and I know most of the track had a full dry line, but I think most of it at least had something where you could at least tell it was mostly dry. Whether or not it was, a little damp or not, not sure, but
Yeah,
it at
okay.
least looked dry to me. Just going back on what we thought kind of should have been a red flag. Alonso was, I don't know, it took a long time for them to clean this crash up too. It took like 5, 6, 7 laps or something like that.
Yeah.
For them to recover the car and all that stuff. So it kind of took, it took the life out of the race a little bit, but then it introduced a whole nother little bit of stuff a few laps later after we restarted, because it started raining again at around lap 43, 44. Both the McLarens were still leading. Max Verstappen was in third, a little ways back, but both McLarens made a big mistake. I don't know what turn that is, but getting close to the pit lane, it's like that right-hander right before the sharp left coming back toward the pit lane.
Yep.
And both of them go on the gravel, and they make it out because they have enough speed. Lando kind of saves it. He gets on the track sooner, and Piastri doesn't quite get to the track as soon, so he can't slow down for the left-hand corner. And Piastri kind of spins out into the grass right in front of Max. Lando at that point went directly into the pits. I think they were planning on going into the pits. And so Lando got in the pits, and Piastri was essentially stuck in the grass out there for almost an entire racing lap. It was pretty close to it. He was able to reverse out after quite some time. But yeah, he dropped, 10, 11 places at that point. And Max continued on while Lando pit. The Ferraris stay out for like 3, 4 laps. Yuki stays out as well, who was P5 at the time, in front of both Ferraris. Gasly stays out, Ocon stays out, and Lawson stayed out as well. So it's causing a little bit of reshuffling. I think Lewis Hamilton ends up in the lead at one point. And yeah, just crazy scenario. Everybody is trying to figure out when to pit. At this point, it's really wet, kind of at the end of the end of the lap. Essentially, it gets really damp back there, where a lot of the track was still dry, or still had a little bit of a dry line. But yeah, it caused a little bit of chaos at this point.
Yeah. That's, I think, underselling it quite a bit. It was mayhem, especially with the two McLarens, going off track. All of a sudden, it was like they're showing sort of like some other drivers, or the pit lane. They're showing like the rain approaching. And then a second they cut back, and both McLarens are off the circuit. Max has closed them down completely. Piastri spins out, and yeah, that was really close. I mean, Max almost hit Piastri. That was close. They're both lucky they got away from that one without any damage. But like you mentioned, some other drivers decided to stay out. I mean, it was pretty this felt like Russia.
It did, didn't it? 2001? Is it with Lando leading? Yeah, did I say 2000? Yeah, 2021. Sorry.
It definitely, like, I don't know why people didn't pit earlier, because, like, I mean, it's, hindsight's 2020 here, but based on what we could see, you wanted to be on intermediates. I don't understand why teams thought they could get away with, their tires, but track position is something. So if there had been a safety car or even a red flag and you were stuck out in first or second, you may have been able to gain a huge advantage. But pitting for the right tire at the right time is the name of the game in this sport. And yeah, some drivers and teams made the right call and others didn't. But it was a chaotic couple laps there, especially between lap 44 and lap 46 or 7. It was a wild couple laps.
Yeah, and I remember looking at the before Max ends up pitting I think it was 2 laps later, which I was stunned that he was out that long. But yeah, pit 2 laps later than Lando did, and I was watching kind of the time difference between those two. It was like, it was at 20 seconds, 19 seconds, 18 seconds, 17 seconds. And then you see a yellow flag somewhere on the track. And I think Bortoletto spun in the same place Piastri did. And I think he was stuck in the grass or he hit the wall. I can't remember. But yeah, he ends up DNFing. Liam Lawson also crashes in a different spot, and that causes a yellow flag and a safety car at that point. So the rookies really having a tough time this weekend. And everybody that didn't end up pitting at this time, like Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, they all end up pitting during the safety car on like lap 47, 48. They all end up pitting. They lose a bunch of positions because of the timing of their pits. Yeah, it was a little crazy. Some big gainers on this was George Russell, Alex Albon. I think he pitted at the right time as well. Kimi Antonelli. I think he started P16. He's all of a sudden P5.
Yeah.
Lance Stroll's P6 at this point. Hulkenberg P7. Pierre Gasly's P8. Hamilton is down to P9. I think he was P6 or P7 before. And Charles Leclerc, I think, was P10 at that point. And Piastri ends up, I think, P12 or P13 after all of this with his spin out and sitting for a lap. There's a whole bunch of craziness during this, like these 3-4 laps of chaos. It was entertaining to watch for sure, and it's great to see some reshuffling and how the strategies played out. But Ferraris were the big losers at this point.
Yeah, definitely. You hit the nail on the head there. The Ferraris were the big losers, as were a lot of the rookies. Some of them, none of it really their fault, but I think only Antonelli's the only rookie driver that really finishes.
Yeah, because Hadjar did not start. Duhan DNF'd. Bortolillo DNF'd. Beerman finished
last.
Yes, but he finished after crashing twice the weekend.
Yeah. So I guess, if all that is to say is it was a crazy weekend for all the rookies. So not great showing for them, but none of it really their fault. I mean, like you said, I think Beerman's the only one of them that got to experience any wet racing in a Formula One car, and that was Brazil last year.
And that was torrential as well. Yeah. They red flagged the race because of the rain.
Right.
And I think he crashed there too. So he got his crash in the rain out of the way.
Good point.
Oh man. But yeah, a whole bunch of chaos. The race restarted on lap 52. Lando Norris got it a little close. I think he made a mistake with a few laps to go, and Max closed up in on him. He had DRS, but couldn't get close enough to make an attempt to pass. So Lando Norris ends up winning. In the end, drove a great race, other than probably 2 mistakes on the day. But yeah, ends up winning. Max ends up second. George Russell third. Kimi Antonelli ended up 4th on the road. He had a 5-second penalty at the time for, was it like a pit lane, like he crossed the pit lane line or something in the pits too soon, and they thought it was a dangerous way to do it. So that promoted Albon at the time to P4, which would have been a greater result for Williams and Albon, but Mercedes successfully protested that Antonelli it wasn't a dangerous move on his part, and he didn't have anybody in danger in front of him that he was going to take out, or anybody had to get out of the way. So that 5-second penalty got removed. So Mercedes finishes 3rd and 4th. So a huge day for them with the opener. Albon finishes 5th. Lance Stroll 6th. Hulkenberg holds on to 7th for Sauber, which was crazy. Charles Leclerc got past Lewis Hamilton, I think, on the restart to take P8. Piastri ends up, I think, gaining 3 positions in about 5 laps. and gets P9 and passed Hamilton, I think, on the last lap of the race, who ends up P10. So, yeah, it was kind of a hectic end as well. But, yeah, just a crazy race here. And I don't know. I know we've gone through it, but it feels like there's a lot more. But there was a lot that we went through, I feel like, as well.
Yeah, there was also this weird multi-lap exchange between Lewis Hamilton and his race engineer, where the race engineer was telling him to overtake Alex Albon and use, what was the button, K10 or K2?
K2, yeah.
It was really strange. And Lewis was like, yeah, no, I know what the button does, man. Just leave me to it. And the guy just kept on, for practice, please try the button. And he was like, yes, I know what the button does. It was hilarious. There's a number of memes out online about it, but yeah, they're definitely teething in over there at Ferrari with the relationships. Lewis coming to grips with the car. I'm sure these conditions didn't help him. Who knows? I mean, he's a very experienced driver. He knows how to drive in the rain, but not to make excuses for him, but just the whole sort of relationship with the different folks at the team and the car and the handling. And I'm sure it's a steep learning curve, and these conditions didn't help him, but they're going to have to deal with it as they go along, and hopefully China offers some respite for all the drivers who crashed, and that there isn't a bunch of rain in Shanghai this upcoming weekend.
And that wasn't Ferrari's only interesting moment. I don't know if you heard the Leclerc commentary about, Leclerc's talking about, I think there's a bunch of water in my seat, or blah, blah, blah. My seat's really wet. And his race engineer goes, yeah, I think that's water. And Leclerc goes, what did he say? What was his comment?
Add those words of wisdom or something like that.
Yeah, add those to the words of wisdom. Yeah. It's just like, oh, yeah, my seat's wet. Yeah, that's probably the water. That's probably water. It's like, what?
Absolutely hilarious. Like, I think reading between the lines, Leclerc was asking, is this from the rain, or is this all my water that I'm supposed to be drinking during the race? Like, did it all come out of the water pouch? And I think the guy was saying, yes, that's the water that you're supposed to consume. It must be all gone. But the way that they said it, it made it sound like neither one of them knew what they were talking about.
Yes, it's wet. It's water. Yeah, but like...
It's absolutely hilarious.
That was pretty good. But yeah, let's go through. Let's try and get you with some team finishes here. McLaren, as we mentioned, Lando Norris P1 on the day, takes the lead from Max. I think this is the first time Max hasn't led since like 2021. Is that right? Or 2020? Yeah. Whatever year
since Spain of 2022.
Was that what? Yeah, something crazy. Some crazy stat. So yeah, Lando Norris takes the lead for the championship. And that's the first time in his career he's in that position as well. Oscar Piastri, a little bit disappointing after having a really good weekend. Ran P2 most of the race, but ends up P9 with that spin out and kind of getting stuck on the grass. Max Verstappen with a huge day for him. I would think he would take it as well with a P2 finish. Liam Lawson, DNF, obviously not how he wanted to start his Red Bull career. Taking over for Checo, as you know, who got let go because of his finishes. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully he can get some good finish next weekend in China. Mercedes, George Russell with a P3, Kimi Antonelli P4. Great result for them. They're tied for the lead in the championship right now with McLaren. Williams, they will definitely take this P5 finish with Alex Albon. He gets 10 points for them. That's just 7 points out of what they had last year at 17. Sainz didn't finish with a P18. Aston Martin, Lance Stroll with a huge P6 for them. Definitely probably not expected, so they'll take that. Alonso DNF'd. Kick Sauber, Hulk, P7. Gets 6 points. 2 more points than they got all of last year in 24 races. They got in one race, so that's a great start for them. And they're also the leading Ferrari power unit on the grid right now, because Ferrari, with a P8 and a P10 finish, are behind them in the standings by 1 point.
Wow.
Crazy times we live in. Not just on the track, but yeah. Alpine, Gasly with a P11. Obviously stayed out late with That tire strategy that didn't help them. Jack Doohan, DNF. It'll be interesting to see. He had a good weekend other than, race day. Obviously with Colapinto waiting in the wings there and all those rumors. Hopefully he can get a good result in China as well. The Racing Bulls, Yuki Tsunoda P12. He didn't put a foot wrong all day long. Disappointing P12 for him. They stayed out late on dry tires when they should have took inters early, just like the Ferraris. Definitely lost out there. Isaac Hadjar with the did not start, crashing out on the opening lap. And man, I did not expect Haas to be here at the beginning of the year, but they are dead last on track at P13 and P14.
Yeah, a crazy race. You got through it there pretty quickly. Lots of DNFs, one DNS. Like you said, I think the big standouts for me where drivers finished sort of out of how they had raced was Gasly in P11. He definitely ran a better race than that. The Alpine didn't look slow this year. I think, he probably is a little bit stronger than that, but he'll be fighting for the points in the races to come. And then, like you said, Tsunoda, he was running P6 for almost the entire race. He was holding off Charles Leclerc. He was holding off faster cars. And just the strategy got him. They gambled and it didn't pay off. So too bad for him. But yeah, 6 drivers not finishing the race is pretty wild.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had that. So, but yeah, we'll go through our winners and losers this weekend. I'll start with my winners. I would say Lando and McLaren. Obviously, Landing winning the race, and McLaren kind of proving that their car is as good as they think it is to start the year off. At least probably the first 8 races before the front wing change. But yeah, great start for them. Who was your winner?
Yeah, I'm going to double up on Lando as my winner. He ran a perfect race. Aside from the one-off, he had maybe 1 or 2 other mistakes, but it didn't cost him the race. He led pretty much the whole time. He qualified fastest. Yeah, overall, he just ran a really good race. So it's nice to see a different driver leading the driver standings. But yeah, Lando's my winner. And yeah, I think Piastri sort of salvaged a couple points there at the end for McLaren, but they are technically tied with Mercedes on points, but because they have a race win, they're ahead in the Constructors' Championship as well.
Who's your losers?
I'm going with the rookie drivers minus Antonelli. Just going to group them together. I'm not saying they're all bad, but just I think each of them would have drawn up their debuts differently than they played out. Antonelli probably feels pretty good about a P4 finish considering he started P16. But I think for the likes of Lawson, Bortoletto, Doohan, Hadjar, Bierman, they probably would have liked to restart the entire race.
Maybe just have a dry day.
Yeah.
But yeah. Probably restart the entire race as well. Yeah, I definitely see that. My losers are Ferrari and Haas. I don't know if Haas knew how bad their car was. Maybe they did in Bahrain, but I don't think a lot of us thought it was this bad. And Ferrari, for them wanting to hopefully compete for race wins this year. Obviously, it's one race. It was a wet race. It's early. They didn't qualify well. They didn't race well. They couldn't get by a lot of people. So it's a tough weekend for both of those teams. China next week. You got anything you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I love the circuit. It'll be nice to see Zhou get some more screen time. He's the Ferrari reserve driver this year, so hopefully we see him a little bit at the circuit. Maybe a surprise practice session. I doubt that, but that would be cool. So yeah, I'm just excited to go back to Shanghai. It's got a lot of fast, high-speed corners, and it's got some pretty massive straights, so we should see some good passing. Hopefully it stays dry. I did take a quick peek at the weather. It looks like it's going to be sunny and dry all 3 days of the weekend.
Phew.
So no lost time and no slippery conditions for the rookies.
It's early. We got we got 5 days.
Yeah, things could change. You're right.
Yeah, hopefully the atmosphere is as good as it was last year when Zhou was on the grid. That was very cool to see, and it was their first time back in China after all the COVID restrictions. So hopefully we get a very good atmosphere. I do love that really long back straight. I love that first turn one. I think that's very unique. A lot of different lines drivers can take through there. So yeah, hopefully we get a good one next week. Yeah, you got anything else for this week?
No, it was nice to see all the cars out on the tracks, especially during practice sessions. We got to see what everyone was really up to. We got to see sort of our first glances at, the pecking order. But I'm really digging this opening schedule, having 2 races back to back, even though it must be pretty hard flying for all the way from Melbourne to Shanghai. I feel for the drivers and the teams and the staffs who have to do a double race weekend, back-to-back weekends like that, just because of the distance. But for us fans, it's really good because we get 2 races in the span of 7 days, and it's just like really sort of, I think, quenching everyone's thirst for more F1.
Definitely. I'm glad we're back in it. I was glad to see cars out on track going full speed, quote unquote, with the rain. But it was good to see the cars out there, see what each team had. Obviously, the rain made a huge difference this weekend, but I think most of us are hoping for a dry race to see what everybody really has this weekend in China. But yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for listening to the Pit Lane. This has been your host, Jordan Wynn, Alden Kwell, and we'll see you after the Chinese Grand Prix.
See you next week.